George W. Bush, 40 years old and basically unemployed, volunteered to go to Washington and work on his father's campaign. His job? Loyalty enforcer.
Well, I think, of course, what made him the best loyalty enforcer was his love for his dad. He wanted to make sure that the people who were working on that campaign were also working for the best interest of George Bush.
It turns out that GW had a side that was neither soft nor gentle. It showed itself when campaign manager Lee Atwater appeared in a magazine in a pose that George W. believed reflected poorly on his father.
His voice would boom out. You could hear it across the whole floor in every office. You know, I hope you enjoyed that, Lee. I hope you got your day in the sun. I hope you're satisfied. I hope you like what you did. He just shouted, and it was humiliating for Lee to go through this period where he had to pay for his sins. And GW was sending the message, you try that again, pal, it'll be your last one. And he loved Lee Atwater, but he was sending that message. And he was sending the message to everybody else on the floor. You know, the kid got away with it. Don't think you're going to get away with it. It ain't going to happen again.
On election night 1988, George Herbert Walker Bush became the first vice president in 150 years to win the presidency. Poppy Bush had a job for at least 4 years. As for George W., he'd already mastered young and irresponsible.
He said, what do I do now as the son of a president? And I said, you want our gang to do a memo on presidential kids and what happens to them? He said, sure. It was just shocking, depressing. High rate of suicide, higher than average rate of divorce, higher than average rate of alcoholism, huge scandals. Almost everything they did was discredited. Their whole world is wrapped up in their father. And FDR Jr. went back to New York, the home state, and ran for governor and lost. And George W. Bush was thinking about going back to Texas and running for governor. So I remember looking at that story and him kind of groaning. And the little footnote, no presidential son has ever been elected governor in American history.
No decisions made by Governor Bush would be as closely scrutinized as those involving that most emotional policy issue, the death penalty. In Texas, the governor can only really defer an execution for 30 days, and then only if he believes there's some doubt about the person's guilt. Regarding executions, Governor Bush's routine was to make up his mind and stand by his decision.
A great example of this was the Carla Faye Tucker execution. This is a woman who had become very religious in prison and a very devout Christian, but had conducted just an awful, awful crime. And yet, religious leaders, political leaders, community leaders from within Texas and all across the country and across the world were writing the governor, asking him to have mercy on this woman.
A lot of evangelical leaders were calling me and faxing me, and as an old friend of GW, saying, get a hold of this guy and tell the governor to give her a chance.
Bush, who considers himself a born-again Christian, was under intense pressure from religious leaders around the world. Pope John Paul II, the Reverend Pat Robertson, and the Reverend Jerry Falwell.
GW called back the next day and he said, well, you're not going to like my decision. And he said, it's going to happen. I said, well, I hope you're getting some sleep. He said, oh, I sleep. I never have a problem sleeping. And that's true with him. He makes his decision, bam, and then he's gone. There's no regrets with G.W. Bush.
I have sought guidance through prayer. I have concluded judgments about the heart and soul of an individual on death row are best left to a higher authority. Carla Faye Tucker has acknowledged she is guilty of a horrible crime. The courts, including the United States Supreme Court, have reviewed the legal issues in this case, and therefore I will not grant a 30-day stay. May God bless Carla Faye Tucker, and God bless her victims and their families.